Hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I don't know if we have any Kansas City fans in here. I'm like, yeah, where's Kansas City? We got to have some fans. It was Super Bowl yesterday. I just wanted to break the ice with us. You're not here to hear about my story with my son, but we're here to talk about Douglas MacArthur, and I'm not sure if everybody's aware of the joint statement that went out on Friday to the community in regards to what our plans are for the Douglas MacArthur project. We did ask for our city manager to be here this evening as well, because this is a joint effort. And one thing I do want to just point out to our entire community is that the work that we are doing has to be collaborative. And we have to make sure that we are providing information to our community in a timely manner, and that, we're making sure that we're working to time frames and timelines that we have. And a part of the joint statement that went out, one of the specific reasons why we have agreed to take any affordable housing co-location off the Douglas MacArthur project is because of the timing. There are some things that we want to stick to the scheduling that we have set. It is a very tight schedule, especially with the fact that we have Patrick Henry as swing space. And a part of that agreement to be able to use the Patrick Henry site, or the old Patrick Henry, as swing space for Douglas MacArthur requires us to be out of that building in a certain period of time. So we do not want to jeopardize that time frame. So that's why the affordable housing piece has been taken off of the table for Douglas MacArthur. So I do think that that's an important thing to start off with. And I think it's another thing for us to share, kind of like, where do we go from here? Because this Thursday, the board will have an opportunity to vote on the concept for Douglas MacArthur. And the concepts that have been posted this past Friday, they are now public documents. We also sent it out to our Douglas MacArthur family community. So I don't know if it went out to the neighborhood association, but I'm assuming that it did. Where's Helen? I'm looking around. They go to the neighborhood association as well. But there were links there to actually show the presentation that will be conducted this Thursday with the board. And what you will see in that presentation, and I'm going to ask for our COO to come up and give some more insight about this, but what you will see on that presentation is you will no longer see that shaded area where there could be potential affordable housing located. That has been removed, because now that's off the table for us at Douglas MacArthur. So now you will see what these concepts look like with the full soccer fields. There is no shaded area that we can potentially come back to use for affordable housing at this site. And I wanted to make that very clear, crystal clear to everyone, so that you don't have to read between the lines or think that there's something else that's going to come later, because we did have a meeting last week at our subcommittee meeting where we had discussed the potential of looking at the concepts in a month from now coming back to the community. That's not happening, right? Because I've been hearing that in the community already. That's not accurate for now, because now it's off the table completely, and it's a public record that says Douglas MacArthur will not have affordable housing at this project due to the timing constraints that we need to really stick to. So I do want to turn things over to our COO. I also want to know if Mr. Jenks would like to make some opening remarks as well, and then provide opportunities for people to ask questions, because if you have some questions that you came here to ask, we would rather you all leave here with some answers, so that you can go back and share with the community, and we can also hear what some people are thinking, or some things or stories that people are saying out in the community that may not be completely accurate. I want to make sure we're clarifying things with that. So let me introduce Mr. Jenks, our city manager, and then we're going to have our COO, Mignon Anthony, to join us as well.
Good evening. Co-location has been a discussion item within the city for long periods of time. Its definition has changed, its definition has expanded. We've done co-location in Ramsey. We got a nature center on one side of the building, and we've got a rec center on the other side of the building. Patrick Henry, we have had a recreation center, small recreation center attached to the school for a very long time, and now with the new Patrick Henry, There is a much bigger rec center, much bigger school, and the space that's shared between the rec center and the school is much larger. So the whole idea is not new. The intent is to get the best use of our community assets. We don't have a plethora of land in the city to which to kind of build out horizontally any way we wish. We also, obviously, by co-locating, by using, like this gym was used for an after-school program, as if your parents here, you know that, right before this particular meeting. So we have, and it was pointed out to me by the rec staff, it was a good opportunity to have this here because the space that they have available is basically to store stuff. There's a closet in the back, and that's it. So in looking at co-location options, what the intent is to look at it to see how when a school is designed or a city facility is designed, how we can take advantage of the available property, of the adjacencies, of things like gymnasiums, which have both a weekend and evening recreational community purpose as well as a school purpose during the day. So the issue of co-location has been discussed for some time. The idea of housing has probably been around as one of those co-location options for a couple of years. There was a joint city and school board, city council appointed task force that looked at joint facilities, that looked at how to work things better, and the co-location and housing part of that was part of their discussion and part of their report. But it was clear as the MacArthur discussion was ongoing in the planning on hyper speed in regards to the tight time frame it has to get that the new school delivered, that there was a lot of information, there's information that wasn't out there. There was kind of a learning curve that needed to be gone up that hadn't happened. And so the superintendent and I had a discussion last week, and this is, I personally think that a further discussion and a kind of decision, go, no go, could have been done. We wanted to make sure there was absolutely nothing in the way of making sure that the MacArthur project stayed on schedule. And the Patrick Henry parents are looking forward to the MacArthur school staying on schedule. You all are looking forward to that school staying on schedule, and to do something that's innovative. We've got a lot of kind of sorting through of how to make it all work. Is something where everybody needs to be enthusiastically rowing in the same direction in order for that to get accomplished successfully. And so the superintendent and I looked at that and said, that does not define the situation here. Time is too short, and so that then resulted in the memo that we issued last week to the school board and city council saying, while it's the concept we think is very can be viable, just not at this particular location at this particular time. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Operating Officer Mignon.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Superintendent. So before I go over the schedule, are there any questions? Please, I'm sorry, I'm Mignon Anthony. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ACPS. And my team, Erica Gulick and Paul Yumbi, who work at ACPS, and our architecture firm, DLR, has been working with many of you over the last couple of months on the design concepts. So before I review the schedule, I'd like to take any questions that you may have on either of the things that Dr. Hutchings or Mr. Jenks.
Yeah, my name is Bruce Brown. I want to be clear, is the housing off the table because of scheduling or because it's a bad idea? And if scheduling was not a problem, would there be housing on the property? I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll answer that question, and maybe Mr. Jenks or Dr. Hutchings wants to chime in. The co-location proposal and partnership that we have with the city is applicable to all public projects. And we're really required and asked, and we have a commitment to working with every project that we have in order to try and accomplish that. This project was pushed forward about 2 years. And so, you know, our commitment was to try and look at it and make it work, but we didn't. I think the whole team was having a struggle with identifying exactly what that meant and where that would go, and exactly how to define it for ourselves, much less define it for you, and trying to also accelerate a project that we already knew had a lot of challenges with it in terms of acceleration. And so I don't know that it's not a good idea. That would be something that I think the city thinks is a good idea for all of Alexandria. But it's off the table because of the schedule. We cannot even explore all of the opportunities that may have to come along with it because the schedule is much too tight and we have far too little definition around what it would mean to this community or to, just the idea of it to try and pursue it on this project. We will have to pursue it on all of the other modernization projects, though, that the ACPS is going to be under going. So.
The answer to my question is because of timing.
Yeah, it's because of timing.
I want to make sure.
I was going to add to that.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, in addition to what Ms. Anthony just mentioned, if we had additional time, we would then be able to explore to determine if it is feasible or not. The concern is the option of doing any type of co-location such as affordable housing is simply an option, right, for any of our locations. It's a potential option. It doesn't mean you do it. And just because something is feasible doesn't mean you do it either. But we did not have the time to even be able to explore the feasibility definitively to say, yes, this is a good site for that, or no, it's not, because that will require additional months of research and investigation, and we really need to stay on track with the concepts that are being introduced to the board today. We don't want, on Thursday, we don't want to have to stall that because that will cause the full project to be behind schedule.
Oh, okay. Over here. So when we're talking about co-localization, and what came out first was affordable housing. This is a school. All of our schools that you oversee, we are a school first. We should always be a school first. And anything that is co-localized here should support our students who are here first. I don't understand why affordable housing is the first thing you come to, yet the examples that you have given are for recreation. That supports our students. So putting something forward, yet again talking about co-localization, affordable housing, is disingenuous to our community.
Would you like a response to that? I guess the only thing
co-localization should be the services that are crucial to our school.
And we agree.
But you're giving examples of co-localization that have occurred in the city, which happen to be recreational services, and you're saying these are wonderful. Guess what? I think most of the people here would love to see some of that. A nature center, we have a nature park back here. But when you're talking about the future, all I hear is affordable housing.
Well, only thing I will say is that when we first brought this up, affordable housing was just one of the options. It was like number 4 down the list. I was here when unfortunately, that has taken the limelight over the last couple of weeks, but it's never been the only thing that we talked about. And the community and everyone we have a lot of strong representation in the concept design that has to do with all of those other things that you say. The connection with the forest, with the recreation, the fact that some of the forest can be used for recreation, the fact that we're looking at a community center as part of the design. So while with respect, I know that's been the topic that most people are hearing right now, but it was never the only, it was really just one of about 7 or 8 different partnerships and services that we presented and that we've been talking about.
Mike Brookbank, Question is, you said there's a requirement for you to look at this issue. Is that a state requirement or a city requirement? I just need to know who I have to vote out of office.
It is not a state requirement. The city policy choice as to what gets built in regards to what's co-located with the schools. And it's a matter of, if I could put it in perspective, there's a regional housing shortage. There is a need, the Urban Institute projected the next decade, the region's going to be short, needs to build roughly 350,000 housing units. And about a third, and market rate units, region even has trouble building enough of those, let alone workforce or affordable housing. So what it has said is the city has been looking at what are the various other options, what are the various other ways to increase the amount of affordable workforce housing in the community. We've done that at Potomac Yard. Affordable housing has nothing to do with a fire station, but guess what? We have affordable housing above the fire station in Potomac Yard. That is, I think we're the first jurisdiction in the country at the time to do that. It has since been replicated in a number of other places. We don't have, as I said, 15 square miles. We don't have a lot of space, and we have to be creative. So the idea over the years has been to look at what are the other ways we can get affordable housing, increase workforce housing, whether it's for teachers or firefighters or anybody who's working in the city who has trouble basically making the rents or mortgage payments in the city, giving them additional options. And that means looking at everything that's possible. And so that's what part of this effort is. However, it does not mean shorting the educational program of the schools or building less classrooms because of that. It's just saying anytime that we're looking basically at a city facility, a school facility, just seeing if we've got room for options beyond just the educational program.
I just wanted to also respond to the question from the woman who talked about the importance of education. We do make sure that education is at the forefront of us building our new facilities. I mean, that is the reason why we're building the facilities, is for our young people. And I think that in regards to, and I'm just speaking of the co-location option of affordable housing, we're looking at exploration of different types of co-location opportunities. It doesn't necessarily mean that is what we are required to do, but we want to be able to explore. Now, affordable housing is off the table for Douglas MacArthur. I keep repeating myself because I want to keep saying that, because I'm speaking to, we have multiple projects that we're going to be working on in the future. And right now our discussion is around not discussing affordable housing for Douglas MacArthur, but we still need to, as the city and the school division, as we work together, we have to really define, well, what does affordable housing co-location look like for if it's going to be at a school site? What would that look like? What expectations are we, or what are the outcomes we're seeking, and what are the benefits as well as the challenges with that, so that we are able to articulate that when it's time to discuss other projects. And there's a meeting on March 4th between the City Council and the School Board, and the topic of that discussion is around co-location and what does that mean for the City of Alexandria as well as for Alexandria City Schools. And from that meeting, I'm hoping we'll have, just a better definition of what that means in our city and what we're seeking to achieve with these potential opportunities.
I live near Samuel Tucker Elementary, and we have affordable housing immediately adjacent to Samuel Tucker. There are teachers living there, there are nurses living there, there are other people such as firemen, policemen who live in those units. I think part of the issue is the city has not done a great job of defining affordable housing, and I think most people switch affordable with subsidized. And there's a huge difference. Affordable are the people that we need to operate the city, and that's who needs housing here. They're driving 2 to 3 hours away to come to work. We have firemen who staff the fire station near me that drive in from Pennsylvania. That's where they're having to live to make ends meet. That's the need that's met by affordable housing.
Good evening. The city is bound by a ratio called FAR. It's a ratio that goes with the special ratio with the floor area ratio. Its purpose is to regulate building structures and land masses. The current ratio that's done by the city is 50-50. But if in fact we had affordable housing at the Garter, that ratio would go through the sky. So I'm not in favor of schools mixing with other people. I think the school should be a school. And as a result of that, I think we need to be careful about affordable housing. Now, I understand that the George Mason has been touted to have this affordable housing. And I understand the affordability, but going ahead and putting buildings on top of George Mason, that would completely eliminate this ratio scenario. So I'm not really in favor of that. I understand the problem, but I think we need to do something better. And I've got a clue as to what would be the best thing to do. Down New Street behind Gately is a park. It's 40 acres in its entirety. That park is called Veterans Park. I've been told that it's used for the FAR, but if in fact we need more affordability and we need it badly, I understand that. Why don't we do something with this park? It's available. We could change it. We could build to it. If you wanted to take 50% of it, you'd have 20 acres to deal with. I think that's something that you need to think about. Thank you very much.
The housing that is proposed for some of these schools, the affordable housing, is that being paid for by us, the taxpayers? And if so, do we get to share in the rents that come back? Are you going to rebate us since we're paying for it?
There are various ways affordable housing can be funded. There's federal dollars. The state is finally getting into stepping up to the plate as far as responsibility, and generally a very large portion, basically, of housing is financed by outside sources, and the rents charged are enough to pay that back. But it's not enough to make it 100%. In regards to rents covering the total cost. So the city does put in, it's now about $5 million a year into affordable housing of local money. There's some federal money that is used, and we've had a program for some time where developers for bonus density, they have to give a certain amount of that density back for affordable housing, or we'll also take a check and then use that. So there is some local money in almost all our housing projects because we're kind of the last dollar in to make it work, and all the income from those that comes from rents goes to pay the basic mortgage that we're able, as much mortgage as we're able to get on those properties, we basically put down. Or generally it's a nonprofit who's borrowing the money because the city, on the new housing that's being built, in general, they're nonprofits who own it, and so they're getting as big as mortgage as they can that they can cover with the affordable rents. But there is generally some city money as the last dollar in, is in effect the equity to make the numbers work.
Hi. My name is Sarah Prey Plunkett. I'm a MacArthur parent. Thank you all for hosting this meeting. With all respect to my neighbors getting a little frustrated with this conversation where we continue to talk about affordable housing when it's off the table. This is a meeting about the MacArthur Modernization Project. Superintendent, you shared the information about a future meeting where we can talk about co-location at other schools. But I would love to move the conversation along and talk specifically about the other co-location potential projects for MacArthur. So my question would be if you could go into a little bit more detail about what those possibly could be, and then what you would like to hear from the community.
Well, with that said, I just want to make sure that there are no more questions out there because that don't relate to that. And let me just tell you why. Because I do think that it's important for us to allow people to ask their questions, because what ends up happening when they walk out of here, they're going to just start going online and it's going to spiral things back up. So I would rather people walk out with information versus walking out and saying they didn't want to hear from us, they don't like us, and that's how people would take it. So I try to, we try, it's not just I, we try to make sure that we are at least listening and hearing. Some people just need to make their thoughts. So if anybody wants to make their thoughts that don't relate to our next steps, let's ask those questions now, and then we will go right into that presentation, because I do want to talk about our next steps too. Yes.
So,
hi.
hi.
You're in the back, sorry.
I guess my question is, are we going to have another opportunity for questions if we don't ask them now? I mean, I'm happy to move it along, but I do have questions.
Is it in regards to affordable housing? Or is your question about the
Could
next
be.
steps for here?
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
So
So once we talk about our next steps, of course, we're going to open the floor for more questions. What I was asking was that, are there any more questions that don't relate to our next steps? So are there questions that are specific about affordable housing while we have our city manager and our housing director here that you
Right.
want to ask? I wanted to get those out of the way.
well, I'm going to ask my questions
Okay.
because I think I kind of straddle affordable housing and non-affordable housing. So I think the question that we should be asking is this, this is a school. So how does this facility and how do these grounds help our students learn? And I hope that's the underlying question that
Right.
we are asking ourselves as we're developing or renovating or building any new schools or the like. But the questions I think a lot of us are asking, and of course I'm wondering, are why do we seem to be prioritizing housing or whatever over learning and safety, the safety of our children? And I would underscore safety there. And then give me a three-part question here, but when other communities and other schools, even in this area, are exploring every way possible to ensure safety and are considering, as they're considering adding an obvious, we're considering adding an obvious security vulnerability when every other school in this area and many schools in this country are looking at every way possible to secure the school and to lock down the school and to, make sure that we don't have these vulnerabilities and these threats to our children. I'm a mom, so that's my first and foremost concern is the security to my child.
Yes.
So why are we trying to co-locate, whether it be affordable housing or adult whatever, we're trying to locate adults and school children. I think we should really consider the safety issues related to anything when we're co-locating adults and school children.
Yes. So safety is a top priority for us as well. We're not doing the affordable housing here at this site, but just in general, I think we have to keep in mind, and this is why we have to educate the community more about what affordable housing is, for one. And two, the fact that many of our schools are in communities, right? So they're right next door to homes, they're in the middle of neighborhoods. So it's hard to say that, affordable housing causes a safety issue when we build we build schools in the middle of housing, and houses. So I think that as we begin to explore what affordable housing means for the City of Alexandria and Alexandria City Public Schools, we'll be able to articulate a better definition around it, as well as what the challenges and benefits are. But right now, we're not at that place to talk about it for any school. We do know, which I'm going to say it once again, we are not doing affordable housing here at Douglas MacArthur, and a part of the meeting this evening was to make sure that the community was very aware that we are no longer even exploring affordable housing at Douglas MacArthur so that we can stay on the right timeline for the school. But safety is a top priority for us as well.
Hi, I just wanted to, this is about affordable housing and co-location, and then you all can have your meeting back. My question kind of goes to all of you sitting here. Seeing as you have dodged the co-location housing bullet and it is coming toward George Mason at a speeding pace, I would like to make sure that all of you in this room support all of us that live in the other communities, whether it's George Mason or anywhere else, that we have your support in fighting the co-location of housing when it's our turn to fight this battle. Because as we were just told, that they have to pursue this on all the other projects. I do understand affordable housing, I get it, except that I have been told by firemen that the station in Potomac Yards does not have any firemen living in it because they make too much money. So I also think that while we're looking at this entire affordable housing piece, we have to get the actual truth in terms of who we're looking at for that housing, who can afford it. Teachers probably make too much because they probably make more than the firemen. So I think that we're playing a lot of word games here, and I'd love to see that stopped. Thank you.
Housing, affordable housing can be structured so it serves various income levels. In the case of Potomac Yard, there were federal, what they call tax credit housing monies used. That sets the income level. A beginning firefighter would fit within the income range that's allowed. So there are some they have chosen not to. There are only about 60 units there. So it was not built as firefighter housing. It was built as affordable housing at the lower income levels that the federal program establishes it. One of the reasons why we also use the term workforce housing, which basically is a higher niche. There's less of a subsidy, and so that basically can, in being broader, will catch more of the firefighters who may be a little more senior, or a two-income family, or a teacher who's got more than just beginning level salary.
Shirley Marshall, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that as a parent, my child went here, he now goes to Jefferson Houston, and as a local neighbor, I actually support the idea of affordable housing. I wish it was still on the table to be at least considered. Do I actually think this particular property would work for it? Probably not. I do think Douglas MacArthur should be treated the same as other schools in the system who have to have this considered. I think it's appropriate to consider all options, as is noted so well. There's a really desperate need for housing, not just for teachers and people, but for workers in the schools, cleaners, the restaurants, everybody else. There's a whole lot of need across a range of prices, and I think this is something that should be considered, and I am not at all opposed to it.
So 2 more hands over here, and then we're going to go into our next steps. Go. Somebody go. 24 kids. Yeah.
I don't actually need the microphone, but I will actually ask a really quick question. We need you to use it. Okay. Oh, I have a quick question. Did you all buy the property that's right next door, the house? And is that going to be where the co-location is? And I'm very confused. Are we still co-locating something here?
I'll speak to that. And let me get her question, too. I'm going to talk about the design options.
Yeah, thanks again for being here. So you said you have city projections for housing needs. What other co-location needs do you project?
For in general, or
for in general, that you could use for a school? Like, do you have defined numbers for other things?
No, there aren't defined numbers because it's really unique to the school. And to answer a little bit about what one of the neighbors said about adult uses and those types of things, co-location is going to really fit within whatever the school requirements are. City services, the city provides services to children, to adults, to the whole spectrum of our city. And so co-location could mean that there is, an additional social emotional support program or a wellness center or something that expands what we already are going to be providing in terms of our children's services. And so the notion that we're not designing to maximize the requirement for education is one that's incompatible with ACPS. I mean, the educational specifications, you all have heard that term a lot, and the concepts that have been proposed are all significantly, totally focused on the education of our kids, the safety of our children, and as a person who's been involved in feasibility studies, design, and construction on almost 10 schools in the last 5 years in the DC metropolitan area, I guarantee you that we've got one of the top K-12 architecture firms. We've got our educational support program that's within ACPS that's working. And actually, the two concepts that we have don't completely use all of the space for the education, the outdoor educational elements. So we've done a lot of work on the concepts by taking input from the community, from the school staff, and from the advisory group, and from internal ACPS. And as soon as on Thursday, the 6th, those of you can tune in to the board, hopefully making a vote on one of the concepts. We'll go from that concept. We'll be having 6 more meetings with all of you, 2 with the school team, 2 with the community team. I don't have the exact dates yet, and 2 with the advisory group, in which we will take that one concept and maximize the educational program on the site, look at what shifts have to take place. Specifically in response to your question about co-location and co-locative activities, we'll be having discussions about which ones that human services, that all of the departments we're working on have worked with our Office of Student Services and said, can we have an office co-located, or can we have a community center at the front of the school or the side of the school that we can have an office in addition to the recreational facilities and the recreational programs that we know are going to be supporting the after-school programs, and then some of the other programs that we're going to be having here at Douglas MacArthur, extending into the park. What are we going to do about the, some of you know that we've got a lot of outdoor play areas and fields that we've got to decide exactly where they're going to be positioned around the school. The concepts provide a notion, provide a concept for how much space it takes place, but they're not final. They'll be developed. And again, we'll have much more conversation about what exact services. We may actually do some blank space that's a city services, city offices type of space at the front of the school that's accessible for seniors programs or for those types of things that are, designed in a way that you can enter the school, enter those spaces without entering the school. So there are a number of concept approaches that, I'll say design approaches, because actually the next step after the decision is made of which concept on Thursday, we're going into design, and we're going to spend 3 very intense months actually finalizing the design of the, of the school, at least getting the elements of the materials, the position on the site, the maximum play areas, getting a lot more information really identified. Yes.
Hold on, we got
You're the only one with your hand up.
Well,
Okay.
Thank you for this information. You have a lot of stakeholders here, and my concern is just the timing. At the meeting that the board had with the city, it seemed like the city was putting a lot of pressure on the board to work with them. I think I heard the mayor say something like, we're giving you $1 million. I don't want to hear that it's that there's a time problem. You have to work with us and solve our problems. I think you've been working, apparently what you said is that you've been working with the city for a while, but as I was saying, we have a bunch of stakeholders, the community, the parents, and we just found out about it. And so my concern and my request is that you include the parents, these large amount of stakeholders, sooner and more often, so that we can have more input and not just find out that there have been talks going on and we've made a decision and this is what we're co-locating and here it is.
So the exact schedule is that for the next 3 months until April, we're going to be in the design, in schematic design, which means we finalize all of the things I just talked about, and then,
I just wanted to say thank you.
oh, okay, sure.
Real quickly, because I mentioned to you at the beginning, I have to go to my son's hibachi 10th birthday. I don't have a choice, right? But I'm going to turn things over to and I want to be there. So if he's watching, I want to be there. So I am going to turn things over to our Chief Operating Officer to talk about the next steps and answer any questions in regards to, getting back on track with the Douglas MacArthur project. But thank you all for coming this evening. I do appreciate your time.
Okay. But the only thing I will comment is there's a whole group of city Office of Planning and Zoning, Recreation, housing, and all of the departments that are with us. We're going to be as transparent as we can as we're moving through this process. Schematic design, February 20th through April the 20th, that's 3 months. Then we go into design development, and that is when we've got about 5 more meetings that are going to take place. So hopefully after the vote, we'll be giving everybody a schedule of when we'll meet again, how we'll review the process of design as it's developed, and any changes that are going to be taking place. Most of you know that we're going to be starting relocation planning in the next month or so, taking inventory throughout the school. We're going to be developing visits to Douglas MacArthur at Taney Avenue. Some folks have already been over there, some of the leadership folks, Principal Miller and a few others. So we'll start having meetings over there or having tours over there. That project, the swing space, is fully under design. Today, our facilities department was picking the floor and picking some lights and trying to make sure that the kids are going to be comfortable when they go there. It's going to be a good space until it's time for us to move back to the new Douglas MacArthur. So we have a lot of exciting design information to share with you. We're just getting started. I think that you'll be very, very pleased. There is a lot of work to be done, but we're looking forward to doing it with you. Yes? It's okay.
So my question is back to kind of what we hit before. Is co-location of a co-location proposal mandatory for the new Douglas MacArthur? And if so, what are those proposals still that you are deciding?
So we've been working through what are the best services to go
but
together.
It is mandatory.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Like something will be here?
Well, okay, let me just say this. I mean, you're making it sound like a bad thing.
No.
But we do co-location in all of our schools now.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not trying to put a negative spin
Okay.
on it. I'm just curious, like, what is still on the table as a proposal?
So the services that we've definitely identified are an expanded recreational space and program. Doing some things for the recreational program in the gym that aren't there now. And I don't want to jump in front of our Office of Student Services, who is working with the city programs to find out exactly what type of, if there's any expansion to some of the child family resource center spaces. What I've done sometimes is create a space that can be worked through once we identify, an area of the school that we're going to use for access by city offices. But that means that we have to identify what resources they're going to use. How many people does that mean that it makes? Is it an expansion to our existing space and people and footprint? So it's a matter of identifying what the services are first. So it's every service that every city agency has. If it is a service to a school or it's some complement to providing support for our children, then we've been in consultation as to whether it makes sense to have an office of that agency here, whether it would allow us to save space within a city, occupied space, whether it makes sense for Douglas MacArthur to broaden the services that we provide for this community. So there's not one that's really off the table yet, and I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but we're actually going to be having an internal meeting in the next week or so that will be more, they've already given us a list, but we've got to let our managers and executives talk back and forth about what's affordable, what makes sense. If we really design the space in the building, will you really use it? Because we don't want to waste space. And we've got to get this concept identified, and we've got to maximize the educational program and make sure that everyone agrees that we've got the right amount of classrooms, the right amount of collaboration spaces, the right amount of play spaces, the right amount of laboratories. All of those things have to be solidified. That's not in place yet, and we have to maximize those things first, and then the administrative spaces, and how would they be designed. So we've got a lot of steps to go through. I'm not trying to evade your question, but hopefully within the next couple of months we'll be able to be more specific.
I guess that's my question. What does that timeline look like, and how will you communicate that with
by
families?
April, in the next 3 months, February 20th to April 20, that's schematic design. That's after they make the decision on concept, and then we're looking at the physical building itself. We're also going to be having lots and lots of meetings, both with the city and with the folks here, about what makes sense, and we've got to do our school staff. What makes sense there first to decide how we're delivering services to our children, and if there is a city service that's a complement to it, whether it makes sense to have that service in the building, next to next in a section of the building, accessible, how that would work. And so I'd say that by April, by the time we go in design development, everything's got to be locked down, because that's when the constructor, and we have a constructor on board, Skanska is our construction company. Every single time that the DLR does a design, they go and estimate it to make sure that we're on schedule and on budget. So they're going to start looking at materials for the building while we're looking at what interior space is going to include. We're going to communicate it through these meetings that we're having. So again, as I said, between now and April, there are 2 community meetings, 2 advisory group meetings, and 2 school team meetings. There may be a few more school team meetings than that. Those are like the ones that are formally in the schedule. And Paul Yumby has like 100-page schedule. It has every single day laid out in it, and so we'll have all of those schedules and those time frames put out to you. Give us time to work, and then give you time to respond, and then give us time to do some more work, and then give you time to give us some information back. So sometimes it seems like some people are thinking that we're hiding stuff. It's just that we got work, we're trying to work, and then we're trying to show you, and then we're trying to work, and then we're trying to talk among ourselves, and then we're trying to talk to our executives. So it is an iterative process, and we're going to do the best we can to move this along so that we can have a really great design and a really great looking school and all the things that you all expect. So Jack.
Yeah, so if I can, excuse me, my name is Jack Brown. I'm with the Department of Recreation on the city's team. So we currently have co-located services ongoing right now in this facility, if you're not aware, and those will stay in the building, which are our after-school programs. The Department of Recreation has one, as does the Campagna Center, which is partnered with the Department of Human Services. So we have been in close discussions with ACPS to ensure that the space that is in the new school can accommodate the program that it needs, but also that we can be flexible enough to expand that program with the projected enrollment increase that this school will handle when it's completed. So that is a co-located program that currently exists and will remain here. We also have a lot of other community programs that happen after the school hours, which will be here as part of the enhanced open space that'll be on the site. We already have, we have a youth basketball program that utilizes the gym here. We're looking for an expanded gym so that that program can actually be more effective. The outdoor open spaces with the recreation fields that are used by Alexandria Soccer today will remain. They'll be improved, so it also becomes a more community asset just for this entire community during the non-school hours. We're also looking at a variety of opportunities to incorporate Forest Park more into, this community with its visibility, with improved trail access, but also we'll be partnering with the schools to try to determine what kind of nature expanded programs can be provided both during school and after school. So those are collated programs that are on the table, have been discussed, and will remain as they are here today.
Hi, you'd mentioned about having the right amount of different things. I would just ask that you strongly consider the right amount of parking, because I understood, and I could be mistaken, that it was 85 parking spots. But if you have additional facilities that is going to bring people into the neighborhood, you need to have sufficient parking. I mean, and plan ahead and anticipate more than you think will come, because we have girls at T.C. Williams. There's 3,000 plus kids at the main campus, and not one student can park at T.C. Williams. So, I mean, learn from the mistakes of the past and just try to keep that in mind, because the parking will flow over into the neighborhood, and Janney's Lane is a parking lot anyway, and there's already been the road diet, and I think that there's a lot of, blood there, and I would just strongly encourage to be not too conservative with that.
Noted. If you notice on the parking, we do have both outside parking for visitors and the underground parking in both the concepts. So did you know that? That we have both the underground parking and the outside parking for for visitors. So, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Let's not compare with other projects. But I hear you saying, let's learn
point,
from
though,
what we have to.
Because like when school starts and when school ends, there is a limited number of parking places here. Traffic is very busy during that time period. So the idea that we would add more spaces to that, whether they're in-ground or outdoor, just continues to add to the number of cars that need to fit through a fairly small area during a fairly short period of time. And it does get to where people in the neighborhood have to adjust their schedules based on traffic already with what's been done. And just to keep perpetuating that seems to be a problem.
Thank you. Have you looked at the concepts yet, if you get a chance?
Well, if you get 45 cars, they still only have a couple of streets they can go through.
Okay, I'm just saying, help us, your feedback is helpful as we move through the development process. I hear what you're saying, yes.
As a continuation, just the turnaround here. I'm sorry. The turnaround that people use is the little Jag in Janney's right out front that people use as a turnaround. That, just making sure that is taking into consideration too, where I know we have issues with Yale and the light here and the traffic. And then you get, if we're moving, so everything's going to be up to the west end. So all that needs to be taken in consideration about how that traffic, again, will move, because it's going to be a lot.
So one of the first things that will happen after a concept is selected is that there will be a traffic study based upon that concept, probably about midway through the next schematic design process. We'll have to get it a little closer to exactly where it's going to be, off of the street and all of those things. But the traffic study is something that will be done as soon as we get a concept. So appreciate that.
I'm interested in knowing if the facilities, like the soccer fields, are going to be used in the evening, then what is going to happen? Are you going to have lights? And what is going to happen to the noise level for those who live in the community?
To be continued discussion. That'll have to be a to be continued discussion. I don't have an answer for you on that right now. I'm sure you're going to help me remember it, right? Okay, you'll be in the conversation as we talk about the use of the fields that will be incorporated in the site. Thanks.
Hi, Carly Derringer. I live directly across the street. My question is more about the design concepts. As I understand it, we're down to a Y and a forest design that's getting voted on this week. But they seem to be very different. One has 3 stories on the front of Janney's, which is the Y concept. The forest has the 3 stories on the back of the property that faces the woods. I mean, this is obviously a school, but it's also a neighborhood as well. Aesthetically, it would seem to make sense that the forest concept would fit a lot better into the neighborhood and be a beautiful way for the kids to learn with 3 stories of learning that looks straight into the woods. Is that being considered?
Yeah. I'm going to say a little something about both of the concepts that's important for people to understand too. And this goes directly to the question about the educational adequacy of the design of the building. One of the things that we really try to take into consideration is the cohort of children in K, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 4th, 5th. And making sure that the school is laid out in a way that those cohorts can stay together to the extent that they can on the different levels of the building. And so the architect is looking at that type of thing in addition to the way that, the layout of the classrooms and the different types of spaces and the teacher spaces, how they have to be approached in the building. So some of these design concepts, in addition to taking advantage of Forest Park, go to those issues, as to the height of the building. I was saying that in regard to the height. And also remembering that the expanse of the building and the reason why they're so long, and all of them, is to try to take advantage of the fact that we need as much roof space as we can for the sustainability, the net zero energy concepts associated with any of the designs that we approach. So I just want to say that about
and those are all important concepts. I just want to make sure that people recognize it's also a neighborhood. The school's important as well, but aesthetically it's got to fit into the neighborhood as well.
Well, board votes on Thursday, so I'm sure you can let them know.
And when they vote, is that then final, the concepts decided upon?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
When we were shown the concepts at the last meeting, and we were shown the concepts with the play spaces as defined in the concepts, then we were shown a figure with a shaded area on top of the play spaces where co-location services would be located. And it wasn't specific to housing or any, it just said co-location services. So I would like to know on these concepts, or whatever is decided, when the co-location services are decided, will the play space be compromised as they have been shown with these shaded areas, even though it's not affordable housing? Is that part of the plan? Compromising the play space as it's shown to us on the concepts now?
Well, the concepts have been changed, so you look on it, you look back onto those documents, and you won't see the shaded areas any longer. And also the answer to the question is, regardless of whatever the co-location is, the educational adequacy comes first. The educational program comes first. And so we were never going to compromise any of the play spaces, outdoor or indoor, or the classroom spaces for any of the other, anything else. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So the adjusted documents don't have the shaded area anymore. And the answer to your question is no, we were not going to compromise the play space.
Okay.
Did you buy the house next door? Did the school buy it? Did the city buy it? And is that going to be part of MacArthur?
The city and ACPS bought the house next door. We bought the land next door in order to help us get more space for the play area that we don't have enough of, and that is in the educational program. That is part of the entire school site at this point.
Mine was more just a comment than a question. If anybody has not yet given your feedback on the two concepts to the board and what your preferences are and why you have those preferences, the school board, sorry, specifically, please do that before the Thursday vote. They are still taking in concepts and they are still responding to people who email them.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Looking forward to a vigorous and very exciting school design period for Douglas MacArthur. Thanks.